In Genesis 12, God speaks to Abraham. He promised Abraham 7 things, one of which is actually being fulfilled in wonderful ways right before our eyes. Welcome to Israel Unveiled. My name is Sandy Wezowicz, and I'm the Israel Education Director for Aglow International, a ministry with established groups in more than 150 nations of the world. In this podcast, I'm going to be speaking about innovations and Israel. The Nobel Prize is an international prestigious award that's given annually, recognizing exceptional achievement in 6 different areas. That award has been given to more Israelis than all the other Middle Eastern nations combined. Israel is often referred to as the startup nation. It's a well-deserved title because it is one of the leading nations in innovations, with an incredible impact on water management and cybersecurity, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence that we're hearing so much about in our world today. And those are just a few areas among many others. It really shouldn't be surprising to Christians because of what the Word of God says about Abraham and his descendants. In Genesis 12, God speaks to Abraham and tells him to leave his native country, his relatives, and his father's family to go to a land that God himself would show him. He promised Abraham 7 things, one of which was that in Abraham and his descendants, all of the families of the earth would be blessed. So I want to talk about in this podcast how that promise that all of the families of the earth would be blessed through him is actually being fulfilled in wonderful ways right before our eyes in modern Israel. But first, I want to give a little background to this. In 1947, the UN Partition plan for Palestine was passed by the United Nations, and it recommended that Palestine be divided into a Jewish state and an Arab state. Now, in a past podcast, I explained the word Palestine, and I shared how in 132 AD, that land, all of that land was renamed from Israel, and it became Palestine, so that all the people that lived in that general area were referred to as Palestinians from that point on. Whether you were Jews or Christians or Arabs or any peoples that lived in that general area until 1947 were referred to as Palestinians. So in that UN resolution, the land was divided, and it was divided between Jews and Arabs, with Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, would be having a distinct description as an international zone. And so it would neither be under the Jewish people or the Arab people. So in that, the Jews were given 55% of the land, and the Arabs received 45% of the land. However, 60% of the Jewish land was in the Negev desert. And at that time, the Negev desert is not what it is today. At that time, it was unproductive. It was largely dry and sparsely populated. And at that time, it practically had no agricultural value at all. In the same plan, the Arabs would occupy the best of the agricultural land in the Galilee, along with Judea and Samaria, with its fertile land, with its wheat fields, and with its olive groves. When that plan, partition plan, was put together, there were Jewish leaders who really wanted to refuse that proposal. But David Ben-Gurion, who was soon to be Israel's first prime minister, and by the way, was one of the founding fathers, he believed that the future of Israel actually was in the Negev. He saw it as it was ripe with potential for settlement, for development, and he saw that in the future it would have strategic importance for the entire nation. And he stated this: the Negev will be the cradle of our future. And it did indeed become a hub for scientific innovation. Ben-Gurion really is and was a true visionary. He believed that Israel was called to excel, and as he said, to be a light to the nations. He believed this. He believed in the concept of tikkun olam, which means repairing and healing the world. And it was at the heart of much of what Ben-Gurion believed and much of what he accomplished. And I believe that they are, because they do share with the world their advances in agriculture, in medicine, in science, and in technology. All of it to make the world a safer and a better place to live. So I want to share some of the absolutely amazing ways in which Ben-Gurion's vision is being fulfilled today. Israel is a world leader in water technology, in conservation, and discovering how to grow plants and crops in increasingly hot, dry conditions, and also how to recycle water. All of which nations of the world, from China to Mexico to India and many African nations, really benefit from. One Israeli innovation that has had a dramatic impact in over 40 nations is desalination, and they have become the forefront of this. Watergen is a company that was founded in 2009 by entrepreneur and former military commander Ari Kohavi. Initially, Kohavi was motivated to answer a problem to provide safe drinking water for the Israeli military. It was in 2006, in the Israeli-Lebanese war, that he saw the difficulty in supplying clean water for the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, in battle. Delivering clean water for them to drink wasn't only difficult, it was very costly to get the water to them. And so what was available and plenty was the humidity in the air. So he put together a team of engineers, and together they created Watergen. Watergen extracts moisture from the humid air, purifies it through filters separating the salt and other impurities, and then through a final process produces safe drinking water. And today it serves many armies around the world as meeting civilian needs, especially in regards to disaster relief, when water becomes essential for the people, for their survival. Watergen plants are helping places like China, India, Australia, Jordan, and even San Diego, California, where the largest plant was built, and it provides safe drinking water for 400,000 people. You know, Israel is indeed dedicated to what David Ben-Gurion believed in, tikkun olam. The second innovation also involves water. And it's the process of drip irrigation. Rainfall is scarce in the Negev. They say that the average rainfall is between 1 and 12 inches annually. It was in the 1950s that a man named Simcha Blas, he's an Israeli water engineer, he patented a concept of drip irrigation. It's an idea that would allow crops to be planted and thrive in areas of arid climates with just limited water resources. And it's an interesting story how that began. It actually began 20 years before he would patent the process. He noticed that a tree that was thriving on his property, on his home, in a very dry and a hot area, but it was thriving. And he found that it was thriving due to a leaky water pipe that was dripping water. And from that observation, he set about trying an idea of precision watering at the roots of a plant. And so he eventually would develop the technology for drip irrigation. It's a type of micro irrigation that saves water and nutrients by dripping water directly into the roots. In 1965, he formed a partnership with a kibbutz Hatzerim, a community in the Negev desert. He used an old greenhouse to try out his idea of a drip system, and it was a great success. And the plants thrived. And so it was just 2 years later, the first sales of this went to farms in Israel. And by the 1980s, it would be brought to Africa, Asia, and every place and everywhere in the world where water was scarce, they could take advantage of this incredible innovation. Today, it operates in 150 countries. Rachel Scholl, who is head of marketing for the company of Negev, asked this: How many companies can say that their products help make sure that tens of millions have enough to eat every day? All because of drip irrigation. And since the 1960s, drip irrigation has really revolutionized the agricultural world, and it has turned dry, arid land into sustainable farming in Israel. And all of this in a nation that isn't even 80 years old. And by the way, one more thing about water. About 90% of Israel's wastewater is recycled to use in agriculture, and that's the highest rate of any nation in the world. An incredible use of water. Who doesn't enjoy cherry tomatoes? Wild varieties of cherry tomatoes are said to have appeared in South America centuries ago. But it was actually in the 1970s that the Israelis developed the modern cherry tomato known hybrids. It was at Hebrew University School of Agriculture. Botanists developed cherry tomatoes that tasted delicious, had a longer shelf life, and were disease resistant. And these developments increased the yield of tomatoes on each plant. And that picture that I've provided showing the lush production of cherry tomatoes on a single plant is incredible. Israel also continues to develop pest-resistant strains of dates, of olives, and wheat that can adapt to the drought. It's amazing, honestly, to drive through the highway in the Negev, which I have, and suddenly see a beautiful crop of date palm trees. And then minutes later, as you drive by, you see nothing but desert again. It's extraordinary. What a picture of agricultural innovation by the Israelis. Israel agricultural innovation continues, and it's done so much to adapt and improve varieties of potatoes. That's a staple in many diets, especially here in the Western world and in the United States. And they've developed varieties that thrive in drought conditions, like the Negev desert. And their work with different breeds, for example, as well as the technology of drip irrigation, has then produced greater yield in heat and dry soil. And aquaculture is something else. And it's the last actual innovation that I want to speak about in this podcast. It's another answer to Israel's limited freshwater resources and their arid climate in food production. In the arid Negev desert, underground water and slightly salt water is used at Kibbutz Keturah to raise a variety of fish for consumption. So, in spite of the conditions that are often challenging, Israel's innovation have enabled it to produce 95% of their own food. That is extraordinary. Being a blessing to other nations, as Israel has shared its ever-expanding technology to help feed people, and particularly of other poorer nations, is really incredible. David Ben-Gurion's bold and ambitious vision for the Negev desert as a frontier of opportunity has really come to pass. It reminds me of a scripture that I would like to end this podcast with. God spoke through the prophet Isaiah in chapter 43, verses 19 and 20. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. The wild animals honor me, the jackals and the owls, because I provide water in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland to give drink to my people, my chosen. In future podcasts, I'll share some more ideas and things that are happening in Israel as they're innovating and impacting the world through those innovations in some amazing cutting-edge ways. I hope you've found this podcast informative and have enjoyed it. And so I hope you will join me again and that you will click like and share. Be blessed and shalom.